So tonight I'm riding a black unicorn down the side of an erupting volcano, and I drink from, I almost forgot the lyrics, from a chalice filled with the laughter of small children. Welcome to the May 2024 Aurelio Voltaire video newsletter. I'm usually super late with these, or sometimes they don't happen at all. So this is maybe the first time ever that I've done one, or sometimes they don't happen at all.
Maybe I should turn up the audio.
This is maybe the first time ever. There we go. Sorry, that was eerie. This is the first time ever that I've done one in the very first second of the month. It's the very first second of May. And as you know, last year was completely insane. And because it was completely insane, I went months and months and months without doing one of these. As usual, please look down here. Please hold questions until the Q&A portion at the end. I don't look at the comments because there's so much to get through that if I try to look at the comments simultaneously, we would never get done. We'd just be here all night long. So I have a lot to share with you, a lot of really exciting things to share. I have a particular announcement that's pretty exciting. And I want to get through all of that. And then you know how it is. Like at the end, we'll do a Q&A. And if you have any burning questions, I'll do my very best to help you with those. But like always, we are going to start with, where am I playing near you? Well, as it happens, I'm about to go on the Halloween Forever tour. The Halloween Forever tour. You know I love Halloween. I'm obsessed with Halloween. Last year's tour was the King of Villains tour, and I really leaned into like the villain songs. This time I'm going to be leaning a little bit more into the Halloween theme songs. And if you look at those V's in the top there, those are shows that I'm doing with a band called Vision Video. Fantastic band. And before we get into the exact dates, I just want to say we had planned to do about double the dates that I'm doing with Vision Video. And then unfortunately, due to logistical reasons that were beyond my control, I had to back out of a few of the dates. Now, you guys know I do not cancel dates like flippantly. So I apologize to those of you who were looking forward to seeing me play in Montreal and Toronto this last weekend. I was still shooting the Demonatrix, but we're going to get to that later. And then there's a bunch of shows that I just was not going to be able to get to. I was not able to physically get to. So what we have left are the dates that I am doing. Let's take a look at those. Chicago the 2nd. That's this Thursday. That's like in a day. In Chicago, Illinois at Subterranean. And I, you know what, before I even go on, if you're coming to the Chicago show, I have a very dear friend. Her name's Cindy. If you know my song, Cindy, the Queen of Halloween, it was inspired by her. We just found out that the club is not wheelchair accessible. And she is in a wheelchair and she's not sure if she's going to make it up the steps. So I've done this before. I think it was in Boston, and I'm planning to do this again. If there are some very strong people who feel like they want to help me carry this wheelchair up a steep flight of stairs, I would be extremely appreciative. And we'll have to do it at the end of the night too. And I think Cindy's cool with it. I've run it by her. Like I said, I've done this before. I did a show, and I think it was in Boston. I'm not sure, but there was someone in a wheelchair, and they found out the minute they got there that they weren't going to be able to get up the stairs to see the show. And, a bunch of us just grabbed those wheels and, we hoisted that person up on a chariot like Dark Side royalty. And I want to try to do that again. I do not want Cindy to miss the show. She's going to come anyway. And she was like, just play loudly. I'll be outside and I hope I can hear you. That's not good enough for me. So let's get her up those stairs. Would you please volunteer if you're coming to that show? I'll see you there. Let's make it happen. Oh, I forgot to mention, Chicago's sold out. In fact, so are the first 3 dates of this tour. So Chicago is sold out. And then on May 3rd, I think that's Friday, I'm in St. Louis at the Crack Fox. That show's sold out. And then May 11th, I'm in Hamden, Connecticut. All of these shows are with Vision Video, and that show is sold out too. So Brooklyn would be the next one after that. What are you going to do, New York? What are you going to do? Are you going to wait till the show is sold out and then lament that you can't get in? Let's get our tickets now. There is a link in the video description to my website, and should be able to get tickets to most of the shows, if not all of them, from there. Please, I implore you, get your tickets in advance, because I don't want you to show up and realize that you can't get in. Let's move on with our dates. Then May 12th, I'm in Brooklyn, New York at the Meadows. May 17th, I'm in Nashville at Cannery Row, Nashville, Tennessee. May 31st, I'm in Austin, Texas at Empire Control Room. June 1st, I'm in Texas at Tulips. June 6th, I'm in Mesa, Arizona at the Nile Theater. June 21st, I'm in Portland, Oregon at the Hawthorne Theater. June 22nd, I'm in Seattle, Washington at El Corazon. And June 29th, I'm in Denver, Colorado at RealWorks. And June 30th, I'm in Colorado Springs at Sunshine Room, I think it's called. And that's all of the shows that I'm doing with Vision Video. They put on a hell of a show. They're a lot of fun, and they're very good friends of mine. So if you bought a ticket to one of the shows I was supposed to be in, please consider going, because you're going to have a great time. They're really fun. And again, I apologize for any inconvenience for the shows that I was not able to make. I'm doing my very, very best to reschedule dates in all of those cities so that, you know, if you didn't get to see me this month or next month, you know, you'll get to see me at some time before the end of the year or early next year. And now we move on to the shows that I'm doing on my own. July 6th, I am tentatively in Monterrey, Mexico. I am still waiting for that to finalize, but I think it's going to happen. July 14th, I'm in Mexico City at Foro Bizarro. And then August 3rd, I'm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota at Club David. August 9th, I'm in Tampa, Florida at New World Brewery. August 10th, I'm in Orlando, Florida at the Abbey. August 16th, Knoxville, Tennessee at the Concourse. And then I go to Poland. So August 23rd, 24th, and 25th, I am in Warsaw, Biafra, and Poznan in Poland. So if you live in Europe, this might be as close as I come to you. If you live in Germany, for instance, you know, please consider coming to the Polish shows, because these Polish dates are the only European dates. There's a UK tour, which you're going to see in a minute. But as far as, you know, mainland Europe, that's it. So I hope that you will consider coming to see me in Poland if you are in Europe. And then moving on, September 6th, I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana at Black Circle. September 14th, I'm in St. Augustine, Florida, Ancient City Con. And then here's my rescheduled Los Angeles date. September 21st, I'm in Los Angeles, California at Bar Sinister. September 28th, I'm in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania at Love Drafts. And then October 3rd, I'm in Providence, Rhode Island at Nocturnal. I don't know the name of the club yet. Nocturnal is the name of the goth night. I've been playing there for centuries, it feels like. Boston, Massachusetts on October 4th at the Middle East. And then October 11th, Kansas City, Missouri at Record Bar. October 12th, Richmond, Virginia at Nightmare Weekend. That is a horror convention. It's going to be a lot of fun, so I hope to see you there. And then speaking of horror, October 18th, I'm in Williamsburg, Ohio at Terror Town. Terror Town is a haunt. Terror Town is an entire like Western town that they turned it into a haunted Western town. They have some crazy levels of tickets. Like you can buy a ticket and just hang out like on the dirt road in the center of town and go to the saloon and walk back and forth from the, you know, some of the shops. And I play in the saloon. But there's also tickets to like do the trail, which is the haunted part where people might jump out at you. And then there's a really immersive ticket where if you like people screaming at you and touching you and like kidnapping you and taking you to a dark area and like burying you up to your neck and covering you in honey. I don't know that that's what they do, but that's what my fear tells me. But really, they have like one of these crazy immersive ticket levels. I could never do that. That's not something I'd be able to handle. But some of you love that stuff. So, you know, when you get your tickets to see me at All Hallows Eve, which is the name of the place, All Hallows Eve Terror Town, make sure you get a ticket that you're comfortable with. And then they give you a wristband, and when they see the color of the wristband, they know whether to mess with you or not. So I'm just playing in the saloon, so I think like a basic ticket will get you to come and see my show. Moving on. October 19th, I'm in Sacramento, California at the Colonial Theater. And then October 25th, I'm in New Orleans, Louisiana at the Goat. Then it's a hop over to the United Kingdom for a show on November 2nd in London at 229 Club. November 3rd in Bristol, UK at Dare Shack. November 4th, my very first time ever in Cardiff. I'm very excited about that. I'll be in Fuel, at a place called Fuel. November 5th, I'm in Nottingham at the Chapel. And November 6th, I'm in Wolverhampton at NAC or NAC. And then November 7th, Sheffield, UK at Corporation. That show sold out last year, so I hope we can sell that out again. That was a fun time. November 11th, I'm in Manchester at Rebellion. And the very last show of 2024, November 9th, in Glasgow, Scotland at Ivory Blacks. And that's it. Those are all the shows. I mean, could one or two possibly pop up in that time? Possibly, but that's like almost every single weekend for the whole rest of the year. And then, I have a family trip that is planned for November, so I don't imagine I'm going to be adding any shows after the UK tour. A little family trip in Mexico. Mayumi's family. Mayumi's playing a show right now somewhere in Mexico as we speak. So I hope you're doing great, Mayumi. I hope you're knocking them dead. And that's it. Those are all the shows. So that takes care of where I am performing for the whole rest of the year, basically. And now we move on to some of the other things that have been happening. So are we going to tackle the Demonatrix first, or are we going to tackle Gothic Life, the book? Let's start with Gothic Life. Okay. Let me go to some of my images here. Well, first of all, this is Gothic Life right here. This is what the book looks like. Isn't that beautiful? This is an advanced copy. I'm told that the final copy is going to have some embossing on the cover, and they said something about a velvety touch. I don't really know what that means. Maybe it's going to be velvety. I don't know, but it's a beautiful, beautiful cover. As you can see, it's quite thick. This book, if you were wondering why there were so few Gothic homemaking episodes last year, it was because I was working on this book. You're going to find this hard to believe, but there is roughly 3 years worth of Gothic homemaking projects in this one book. And I was specifically told I could only have something like 20% of existing content, so you'll see things in here like projects that I actually did on the show already, but 80% of what's in this book had to be new projects. So that's new recipes, new food recipes, new drink recipes, new DIY projects, decorating tips, decorating ideas, activity ideas, things that are fun to do. It is so much, which is just why there was so few Gothic homemaking episodes, because I was putting everything I had into this book. I'm not going to lie, this book nearly killed me. This was the most work. I'm a workaholic. I work my ass off, and this was the most work that I've done, because I had to do like 3 years worth of Gothic homemaking episodes in about 3 months. It was rough. It was really hard. But I have to tell you, I had an incredible photographer, a fellow by the name of Roberto Beltran, friend of Mayumi's. He came up from Mexico City to film this book. I said, Roberto, I'm going to hire you to photograph this book, and I'm going to bring you to New York for 10 days. But it's going to take 5 days to film the book. He said, well, then why would you pay for my hotel and pay me and have me sitting around for an additional 5 days? And I said, because I don't know how it's going to go. I don't know if we're going to take pictures and send them to the publisher and they're going to be like, this is crap, do it again. So it would be best if you were here. Okay, spoiler alert. We shot 10 days, all 10 days that he was here. They were like 16-hour days, and we still didn't finish. And I asked him, do you think you could extend your trip by can I cancel your flights and buy you a return flight and pay for your hotel? And he handles all of Starbucks stuff. I mean, he's a professional photographer, and he does like Starbucks and Domino's. He does all this stuff in Mexico, and he like canceled some appointments, and we finished what we could finish of the book. Now there's a section on summerween, and I show some summerween recipes and some summerween decorations, and we couldn't do them in New York because we were doing this in February in New York City. There was not a single leaf on a tree. So the summerween section, once we wrapped in New York City, Roberto and his assistant Alejandra and I flew to Mexico City, and we shot the rest of the book. This is the hardest I've worked since my stop motion days. I hope you will consider buying one of these. You can pre-order this right now. This seems like a really great opportunity to do the thumbnail for the book. Those of you who watch my Gothic newsletters, you know how these are done, right? Like the thumbnail is done live. I go like this, 1, 2, 3. Is that goofy enough? Do I look like an influencer? Derp. In other words, do I look super dumb? Let's try one more time. Ready? Here we go. How's my hair look? Is it three-dimensional? Do I got the 3D thing going? 1, 2, 3. You have to look like excited about something, or you know what really sells? Thumbnails like this. I'm definitely not using that one. All right. I think we've shot our thumbnail. The link to pre-order a copy of Gothic Life is in the video description. Please consider placing a pre-order. It comes out August 13th. And then I'm going to think about, I was talking to the publisher because a lot of you are going to ask, like, can you get a signed copy? They are going to be shipped by Amazon. And I thankfully do not sit at the Amazon headquarters ever. Although I would definitely go on Jeff Bezos' rocket if he invited me, so I could follow in the footsteps of old Captain Kirk. But yeah, they will not be signed. But I'm talking with the publisher about making signed plates, and I don't know how we're going to work that out. But I will happily sign a whole bunch of plates that you can get from the publisher and put into your book so that it subsequently it's signed. And I'm going to show you a sneak peek of the book while we're here. These are from the Amazon page. Oh, you know what? I got a trick to do this. What did I do with my towel? Here we go. I have a trick to make this look better. There we go. So this is an example page. These are actual pages from the book. You can see these if you go to the link in the video description. This is sort of like a part of the introduction where I'm talking about what the lair of Voltaire looks like and how I got there, creating a Gothic home, some advice on how I managed to turn this weird little space into a weirder little space. Here's another. There's a little sneak peek at my kitchen, my Gothic kitchen. When I get back to Gothic homemaking, you can expect a Gothic kitchen transformation episode. Here's a chapter 6, taking your home from mundane to macabre. This is a section that has a whole lot of DIY projects. You can see some of them there. That lamp is a DIY project. That skull candelabra is a DIY project. And of course, I had to include the wine candle candelabra, my easiest and first Gothic DIY project. You see that in the far left over there. And of course, like I said, some of the projects are projects you've seen on the show. This is the Haunted Library End Table, one of my favorites, but most of them are new, like this Gothic lamp transformation. I just think the photography is so, so amazing, and I hope you will agree. That was not very slick. Anyway, that's the Gothic Life book. It ate my soul. You would not believe how long I've been working on that book. A lot of negotiating and a lot of talking for months and months and months and months and months, and then a lot of planning, and then a lot of writing for months and months and months and months and months. And then I went into Indonesia for a month, and I still wasn't done with the manuscript. So instead of like being in paradise, enjoying my vacation, I was chained to a desk where I woke up every morning and I wrote the Gothic Life book. And I did that for like the first 15 days of my 20-day vacation. I'm very, very happy with the manuscript. And I got back, and then it was crunch time. Then I had to like build everything. I had to like cash the checks that I'd written in the manuscript. I had to build everything. And Roberto and Alejandra came up and filmed it, photographed it. And I'm super proud of this book. If you have my book, Paint It Black, A Guide to Gothic Homemaking, I cannot begin to tell you what a huge improvement on that this is. It's a whole other world. It is a really, really amazing, high quality book. And now we're going to move on. We're going to move on to what happened immediately after I finished the Gothic Life book. Oh, my friends, I could not tell you how desperately I needed to take like 3 months off after Gothic Life, really. But I didn't, because I'm insane. So I immediately started working on my feature film directorial debut, The Demonatrix. Now, if you haven't heard of The Demonatrix, it is a screenplay that I wrote about 10 years ago. And I went to a friend of mine. I went to a friend of mine, Jeff Farrell, he's also a musician, and he opened for me a few times at El Corazon in Seattle. And he had made 3 feature films, and I asked him, like, hey, can you help me make a feature film? And he was like, absolutely. So we wrote this screenplay together, and we talked about making this movie for years and years and years. And then this year, we finally decided we were going to do whatever was necessary to make it. We raised some money, thanks greatly to some of you out there who are watching this right now. If you donated to the Demonatrix Indiegogo campaign, thank you so much for helping us get off the ground. We had some private investors as well. And ultimately, we had enough money to make, we had the bare amount, but we had enough money to make the film. As you know, if you know anything, well, like the log line for the Demonatrix is a dominatrix teams up with a priest. Well, a dominatrix unwittingly summons an incubus demon and teams up with a priest to send it back to hell. That's the log line. A lot of people think that that's insane, and that's wonderful, because that's why people are interested in this film, because it sounds like it's completely bonkers. But I really wanted to tell a story about 2 people who seemed like they should not know each other and they should not get along. And sadly, we live in an age now where people don't talk to others who disagree with them. You know, like there's us and them, and there's no communication and there's no dialogue. And I wanted to show that it's not so crazy for 2 people from opposite walks of life to have a friendship. And that's what they have. They have a friendship. For those who think this might be a comedy, I don't blame you, because it does sound like a spiritual sequel to the Velocipastor, which I was in. But it is not a comedy. It is a serious horror film. Of course, there's moments of levity, and of course, there's jump scares and things like that. And there's an incredible demon. And we're going to get to a really big announcement in a moment. But it's a serious horror film. If you love horror, you're going to really dig this movie, I think. And now it's filmed. Like, I went to Seattle. We had an incredible crew that worked really, really hard. And in 13 days, we shot this entire film. There's literally one thing missing. There's a flashback scene that takes place in Mexico. And we're shooting that in July, like in the middle of my tour. Like I kept a month free for this very reason. And in July, well, then that's why there's Mexico dates in July, right? Because I'll go to Mexico, I'll play Monterrey. The next weekend, I'll play Mexico City. And then the next weekend, we're going to film this flashback scene. So I play Father Veto. Father Veto is a priest. He's a Mexican priest. And I really, this role is my love letter to Mexico City. For those of you who know that I've been living in Mexico City, you know, between New York and Mexico City, but you know, Mexico City has adopted me, you know, and I have something that I've never had, and it's something Mexico gave to me, and that's a family. I ran away from home when I was 17, and things weren't too good at home before I was 17. And I have a family in Mexico City, and I really wanted to make sure that I created a character that was authentic and that people could get excited, that specifically Mexicans could get excited about. So he's a bit of a rock and roll priest. He has certain interests in certain music styles. He loves a band called Los Caifanes, which I also happen to love. And he loves Los Fabulosos Cadillacs. And he likes Mexican rock, which explains why, he looks like this. Because let's face it, Father Veto does not look like your average priest. Our leading lady, Hannah Fearman, you might know from a movie called VHS. And she was in the spin-off of VHS, a movie called Siren, where she plays her incredible succubus character. She's been in episodes of Creepshow, episodes of Vampire Diaries, and wow, she was so talented. She blew us all away. She has like 50 million looks in this film because she's a dominatrix, so she has her dominatrix moments. She's also a woman who wakes up and drinks coffee and has nightmares, and she brought all of that very authentically. She really has a lot of, she holds a seance, and she kind of gets done up for the seance in a very sort of 1930s seance sort of way. And she's just so authentic, like her performances are just really fantastic. And I think you're going to love her. My co-producer, co-director, co-writer, and co-star, Mr. Jeff Farrell, is in this film. I'm going to be very, very honest. And I can tell you this because I told him this. I did not know if he could act. So he had like a tiny little role in his first movie called Ghost Light. It's a ghost story, and he plays one of the ghosts, but it's a really, really short role. And he looked great on camera, but it was hard to gauge. And it wasn't until I got on set and the camera started rolling and he was in front of the camera that I was like, oh, wow, he's great. He just really exudes charisma. He looks really fantastic on camera. He plays a character named Rhett Fields, and he's like the live-in servant of Lita, our dominatrix character. So he's like a gimp, and you would have no reason to there would not need to be a reason for this character to have like a lot of weight and gravitas, but he does. He has a great presence, and I think you come to know him, and there's certainly very comical elements to him, but then there's a lot of pathos as well. And my God, who else is in this? Doug Bradley, who played Pinhead in Hellraiser, is in this film. So we got to not only direct Doug Bradley, but I got to act side by side with him. It was day one, I'm on set with Doug Bradley. So that was exciting. I've known Doug for many, many years from the convention circuit, but working with him was a whole other experience, and it was humbling. There's an altar boy in this thing as well, whose name is Pablo, and he was played by a fellow named Nick. And I learned just as much from Nick as I learned from Doug. I'm the novice here. I'm like the weakest link in the chain in this entire cast. It's entirely true. And so I learned so much from everybody on set, all these incredible actors. Larry Fessenden was in our film. Larry Fessenden is a indie horror director for the most part. He made Wendigo. He made a movie called Habit. He made a movie called The Last Winter with Ron Perlman. He has a new werewolf movie out now called Blackout that just came out. So if you can, I strongly encourage you to check it out. But as an actor, he's also fantastic. And he was in a movie called I Sell the Dead. He was in Scorsese's Bringing Out the Dead. He's just, we didn't deserve him. I'll tell you that much. We didn't deserve him, but I've known him for a while. And I'll tell you a very funny inside story. So I asked Larry if he'd be in my film, and he said yes. And we were over the moon. And as we started getting closer to production time, I wrote to him and I was like, Larry, I need you to get in touch with Jeff so that you guys can work out travel plans. He says, travel plans? What do you mean travel plans? Isn't this being shot in New Jersey? And I was like, no, what makes you think it's being shot in New Jersey? He says, this isn't Call of the Jersey Devil? I'm like, no, this isn't Call of the Jersey Devil, which was a movie that I had pitched to him like 10 years ago. I said, no, man, this takes place in Seattle. And so he was such a trooper, because he really could have said like, oh, hey, man, I was kind of doing you a favor, but I thought it was like something I'd be able to get to in an Uber. Didn't realize I'd have to fly out there, but it all ended up working out. His film Blackout was playing in Los Angeles, and he was going to do a Q&A. And so we were able to like get him to Los Angeles, and then from Los Angeles up to Seattle. And he plays Dino, a guy who sets up like haunted attractions. He's like, hey, yeah, a little bit of New Jersey, got a bit of New Jersey in him. Well, you don't like this stuff? I'll pack it up and get the hell out of here. Really, really one of those moments of levity, like when that scene happens, I think the audience is going to have a lot of fun with Larry. And I'm going to show you, before I move on, I want to show you some photos from the set. Now, if you donated $66 or more to the Indiegogo campaign, you're going to get a newsletter every month detailing what's happening with the film. We just sent out the first one. So if you are one of those people, you already know the big surprise. And these are some of the photos that went with that package. So I'm just going to show them to you real quick. Here's Father Veto, that's me, giving a sermon in Spanish, an impassioned sermon to his alt-Hispanic congregation. And it's a really fun sermon. I can't wait for you guys to see it. This is our leading lady, Hannah Fearman, and there in the background is her live-in servant, Rhett Fields, played by Jeff Farrell. And if Rhett Fields sounds familiar, it's because I intentionally named that character to be her Renfield. He's her Renfield. Here's the extremely handsome Jeff Farrell. I had no idea this guy was so beautiful until I pointed a camera at him. He has these piercing blue eyes and this chiseled face, and just looks really fantastic on film. There he is, giving Larry Fessenden a hard time. And there's Larry Fessenden setting up our fake seance. And then, of course, the incredible, legendary Doug Bradley. Doug Bradley plays a demonologist in this film, and he's sort of the mentor of my character, Father Veto. And here's a scene where Father Veto goes. We shot on day one. This is Father Veto goes to talk to Father Edward McGowan, about some strange occurrences that are taking place. And then here I am. I visit this home a lot. Father Veto is really concerned about Lita after she does the seance. And he's really concerned that she's unleashed an evil, which she has. Spoiler alert. And here we have our little co-star, a desiccated demon in a Faustian cross. And this is a thing that you're going to see come to life. I'm very excited about that. We had another guest star on set, our own Daniel Rosas. You may know him as the first officer of the Voltaire Signal Corps, and he is one of the attendees at our seance. And now, without further ado, there's one character that most of you do not know about, and that is our demon. Now, of course, I'm not going to show you the demon. I want to try to keep the demon a surprise for as long as I can. It looks fantastic. I will tell you this. Our demon was made by Norman Cabrera. I would tell you all about him, but I can't because his resume is so long that I would need a whole other newsletter just to do that. But suffice to say, some of his credits include Ghostbusters Afterlife, Star Trek Beyond, The Walking Dead, Drag Me to Hell. Gosh, what else? Gremlins 2. I mean, and all the Hellboy movies. So he's worked with Guillermo del Toro a bunch of times, bringing, those characters to life. So obviously he's worked with Doug Jones. And he made a demon for us, and it looks really spectacular. And like I said, I'm going to try to keep that demon under wraps. But I am going to tell you who plays our demon at long last. You guys ready? I don't know. I'm going to look at the comments real fast. Is there any excitement? Great movies. Father Veto will give us his blessing. Absolutely, Father Veto. This is actually one of the perks in the Indiegogo campaign was Father Veto doing some cameo style blessings, which of course I'm going to do at some point very soon. All right, here we go. Without further ado, playing the part of our demon is, drum roll, Nivik Ogre, the singer from Skinny Puppy. Now, if you're not familiar with Ogre, if you're not familiar with Skinny Puppy, well, I can tell you, I've been familiar with Skinny Puppy since the 80s. And if you're not familiar with Skinny Puppy, you might not know their music if you're not into goth industrial music, but you would know him from Repo, the Genetic Opera, where he played Pavi Largo. And he was also in The Devil's Carnival and the sequel to that, Hallelujah, where he played the twin. So he's a legendary Gothic figure. It was such an honor to have him on set, and he was so nice. He's so nice. He was so sweet. I really hope I get to work with him again. And I am going to show you one little photograph of him on set getting into his costume. There he is. There's Ogre getting dressed up as our demon. Luckily, you can't see much of the costume in that shot, but you can see this handsome fellow. And he, as you might imagine, he's a great performer. He's very, very physical on stage, and he brought all of that physicality to this character. And so that's the big surprise. And I think that more or less brings us, well, I guess I can tell you that the Demonatrix is now in the can. It is now up to Jeff Farrell to edit it all together. And, I told you we're shooting a flashback scene in Mexico City in July. But nonetheless, I've never heard of a film that was done in under a year and a half or 2 years. So I didn't really think about when this film was going to be done. And I was having a conversation with Jeff, and he was like, yeah, so, once it's all edited together, we can start hitting the film festivals in the autumn, around the fall, all the Halloween festivals. And I was like, in 2025, right? He goes, no, 2024. I'm like, you are not going to have this film done by 2024. So don't quote me, but I have been told that the Demonatrix is going to be finished before the end of this year. And of course, the next natural question from a lot of you is going to be, where's it going to be? Am I going to watch it on Netflix? Am I going to watch it on YouTube? Is it going to be in theaters? Sadly, we don't know any of that. Films get made in lots of different ways. And the way that you are probably most familiar with as a watcher of films is the studio system. So, Paramount decides it's going to make a new Star Trek movie, and Paramount pays for it. And that it's going to come out on Paramount Plus, and they're going to put it in movie theaters, and that's how you're going to watch it. But a lot of these indie horror films, you just have to make the movie and then cross your fingers and see what happens. And that's what we're doing. So we've made the movie. We're going to finish the movie. We're going to submit it to film festivals. We're going to see who bites. We're going to see if anybody wants to show it at their film festival. And then you cross your fingers and hope that a distributor says, oh, wow, I want to put this out. And then you cross your fingers again and hope that the distributor is actually going to give you some money, and you're actually going to, it's actually going to get promoted and people are going to see it. And, at that point, when that happens, I am obviously going to beg you on my knees. I'm going to beg you that you give the film some attention, that you go see it if it's in the movie theater, that you watch it on Shudder if it's on Shudder, give it some good reviews, presuming you liked it. If you don't like it, say nothing. But, there you have it. For all intents and purposes, you might be seeing the Demonatrix before this year is over. This film has been a real dream. I was telling a friend just yesterday, my life, I have been on this trajectory to make a feature horror film since I was 10. I started making films with my stop motion camera, my Super 8 camera, when I was 10 years old. My mother used to say, I can't wait for you to get your Oscar, and I will come and I will see you get your Oscar. And I was like, yeah, no pressure. Yeah, it used to really freak me out when she'd say that. My grandmother used to say it too. Oh, when you get your Oscar, we're all going to go. And I was like, oh my God, ladies, chill. You're freaking me out. And I ended up getting into, when I was 17 years old, I ran away from home and I got hired as a stop motion animator, and I was over the moon. I was 17 and I was doing exactly what I wanted to be doing, which was animating. But I didn't realize at the time that working in commercials was just never, ever going to lead me to making films. And I was offered a job animating a film called The Nightmare Before Christmas. That's another story for another day. I turned it down. I had very good reasons, but that might have led to making stop motion features. And I ended up making, 6 stop motion shorts. They have a combined 35 film festival awards. I was probably well on the road to making a stop motion feature. But what I really wanted to make monster movies. And there's a lesson in here somewhere. You know, if you have a dream, be working on that very specific dream. If you're doing something that's like different from where you want to get to, you might just get caught up in that other thing and never find your way. So I had to make a very, very conscious decision to get this film made. And luckily, with the help of Jeff and Hannah and Doug Bradley, Larry Fessenden, you know, Ogre, and all of the people who contributed, came in and like lit the film and did the makeup and did the costumes and did the sets and the props, and just everybody gave so much to make it great. And I hope that when it comes out, that you will agree that even if it's not like best film of the year or even close to best film of the year, that it's at least a really solid, entertaining midnight movie. And if nothing happens with this film other than it being shown at midnight forever, I'll be perfectly satisfied. And I think that that's it. The only thing that I could really cover now is Gothic homemaking, but I'm still recovering from the Demonatrix and the Gothic Life book. And now I go on tour, like literally 24 hours from now, I will be on my way to the airport to play in Chicago. That show's sold out. The next day I play in St. Louis, and that show's sold out. I come back, and the next week I play in Hamden, Connecticut. That show's sold out. And then there's a whole bunch of other shows. So please buy your tickets today. Don't get left out. And that, my friends, is all that I have to share with you. So I'm going to turn this over to question time. We have 35 seconds. I'm kidding. We have 19 minutes. 19 minutes if anybody has a question. I want your book, says Kiruchi. Thank you. You can, will Mayumi be in the movie? No, Mayumi is not in the film. Yeah, that was just never really a plan. And she was stuck in Mexico anyway, working on her own stuff. So maybe the next one. You never know. Any word on your coming to Utah this year? You know, I wish I had an answer for you, but I reached out to my usual suspects in Utah and never heard back. And favorite Mexican antojito. Oh, God, that's so hard. I love so much Mexican food. What is John Chadwick saying? Good to see you. Can't wait for the movie. See you in August. See you there. August. Oh, yeah. Orlando, Tampa. I'll see you at one or both. Do you have a favorite album that you made? I'm a big fan. Just found your YouTube, says Mike. No, my favorite album is usually whatever I'm working on right now. And it better never change. Because if I'm working on something and I don't think it's the best thing that I've ever done, even if I'm deluding myself, if I don't think it's the best thing I've ever done, that's a problem. So, you know, presently I'm really excited about The Last Halloween Party. And I probably should have told you, I made a physical copy. I'd have to get up and go across the room to show it to you. But for those people who were clamoring for physical copies of The Last Halloween Party, I've made them, and I'll have them on tour. What inspired you to be the person you are now? How would you give everything up? Would you give everything up to be someone else? Says Psychopath Next Door. No. Why would I want to be anybody else? I mean, I would gladly be better looking. I would gladly be richer. I would gladly be smarter, and I'd gladly be more successful, and I would gladly be more talented. But then I'd be someone else. So I'm strangely content with being who I am. And in the great words of Oscar Wilde, be yourself. Everyone else is taken. And what inspired me to be the person I am now? A lot of pain, a lot of abuse, and a lot of bullying kind of brought me to where I am now. Realizing that I don't want to live that way. Realizing that you have to rebel against those forces, and you have to find out who you are and then be who you are unapologetically. And don't let people into your life who stand in the way of you being authentically yourself. So that's what I would say to that. Rena says, congrats on your film. I have my own Gothic DIY project I am doing. Sadly, it won't be done by the time you're here, but I will post it on Instagram when it's done. Absolutely. And tag me. I'd love to see it. Shenanigans, 1993. Hi, Voltaire. So sad you weren't able to make it to Toronto. Me too. Hopefully you'll get to visit your northern neighbors really soon. Very excited for the film. There was a lot of excitement about the Toronto and Montreal shows, and I was very excited because I haven't been to Canada in a really, really long time. I thought it was going to be a really good time. Unfortunately, the Demonatrix went late. We had to add a day of filming, and I barely made it out of there. So, you know, those were the first shows to go, unfortunately. But it made me realize that I really need to work extra hard next year to do some shows in Canada, and that is what I'm going to do. Eric says, Voltaire, how do you suggest getting over a lifelong friendship that's ended almost 20 years? You know, unfortunately, with everything of that nature, it really comes down to details, you know, it comes down to details, because if it ended because of a mistake that you made, or if it ended because of a miscommunication and it's reparable, then you should work on repairing it. But if it ended because the other person doesn't accept you, doesn't respect you, you know, has a problem with you, I usually thank people who walk out of I thank people who let me know they don't respect me, or let me know that they don't want me to be who I am, because they're doing me a favor. You know, like they're saving me the legwork of investing a tremendous amount into a relationship, only to find out that they're never really going to love me on the level that everybody deserves to be loved. And that is love with respect, So unfortunately, I don't know your details, but I know it's going to be, I know it's hard. I know it's not going to feel good. And I would suggest watching your favorite kinds of movies and trying to spend time with the people in your life that bring you happiness and joy and make you smile. And, you know, like everything else in time, it may not seem like such a big deal. So good luck. My thoughts are with you. How do you get your beard so perfect? I go like this. Says Vlador Kiba. I push it out and it just grows. People ask me all the time if the white parts are dyed. I tell them it's the only part that's not dyed. So my beard, it grows, you know, it grows fine. Like I almost don't trim it. This is pretty much just the way it looks. But I do dye it black, except for these parts. Although it kind of normally is sort of grayish only in this area, but gray is starting to come in other places. And I just dye, I keep these parts gray. I do the same thing with the temples, you know. Like these parts are just naturally gray. So like when I dye my hair black, I just isolate those parts and I don't dye them. Because I want to be Dr. Strange. Janet says, I booked a trip to Connecticut, but the last thing I forgot, tickets to the show. So I'll be in the same city on that night. I'll be straining my ears to hear you from the parking lot. Janet, that sucks. All right. Well, I've known you for several decades, so I want you to email me and I'm going to put you on the guest list. But do not make this mistake again. Get your tickets in advance, people. So yeah, just, you know, I've known you for too long to let you miss the show. So you just email me and I'll get it sorted. Decomposed Corpse says, not really a question, but you've been a big part of my early teens with Billy and Mandy, and then getting into your music and artwork never change. You know, it's funny hearing don't ever change from Decomposed Corpse, because the one thing I'm certain is going to happen is I'm going to decompose and then I'm going to change whether I like it or not. But I get what you mean. I'm in the fight every day. I'm in the fight every day. And I just, and you know, you guys keep me going. You have an interest in what I'm doing, which is the biggest part. You support what I'm doing by, you know, like buying the book, buying the records, coming to the concerts, and it financially and physically keeps me going. But it's the emotional support that makes me continue keeps me creating. So thank you, Decomposed Corpse, and thanks for sticking around. All right. What's the weirdest thing someone has said to you at a meet and greet? Says Neon Bat. Oh God, there's so many weird things. But I'll tell you a quick story. When I was touring, you know, with the Black Labyrinth album, which was my tribute to David Bowie, I would get very emotional, you know, when I would sing like As the World Falls Down, and I would cry, you know, I would legitimately cry. And I would talk about how important David Bowie was to me, you know, like made me realize it was okay for a guy to wear makeup, made me realize it was okay for a guy to dress flamboyantly. Meanwhile, everyone in my town was like physically beating me to the ground and calling me all sorts of names because I wore makeup and had an earring and stuff like that. And I don't remember what city it was, but after the show, a young fellow came up and he said, I just want you to know that you're my David Bowie. And I started sobbing, like openly sobbing. And someone behind him said, oh, great, you broke Voltaire. It made me laugh. But, you know, weird things that people say, I don't know. I probably forget them. Like, you know, anything that like displeases me or annoys me, I have a very short memory for stuff like that. And I forget it, you know, within a very short period of time. But profound, meaningful things like that I'll never forget. I'll never forget that moment. What's your favorite part of your movie? Ooh, I think the sermon. Says Autumn Moon asks the sermon, because I wrote the sermon, like, you know, the last time I looked at the script before filming, Jeff, my screenwriting partner, had written Father Vetto says a sermon. Like, dude, for real? Like, seriously? Like, you need to write what the sermon is. So I had to come up with a sermon myself. And I think you'll be very surprised by it. And it's what ended up defining the character, because the character starts talking about music. Yeah, I mean, the priest starts talking about rock and roll music. And it's just it's so out of left field, and it makes perfect sense, but it's so out of left field. And it makes you realize that this guy's a human being, you know? And so I'm going to go with that. What was the most challenging part of making the film, says Exinilda? Finding the money. No joke. That's the hardest part about making a film, is finding people who have faith in you. You know, like a couple $100,000 is a lot of money, and finding people who are like, you know, I feel comfortable giving them that kind of money because I know they're going to do something cool with it. So that's certainly one of the hardest parts. And then you get on set, and then the next hardest challenge is you have a vision in your head, in this particular case for 10 years, of what this thing looks like. And now you have to communicate to a bunch of strangers like how it's supposed to look. And that's really hard. And then of course there was the acting. I was also acting. And I'm not a professional actor, you know, I'm not a full-time actor. So there's a lot of hard parts. It's all hard. It's all hard parts. Thank you, Sam Fibrofox. Sam Fibrofox. Thank you for that. Razbipek says, I love your music, Voltaire. Hope someday you'll be able to play in Wichita, Kansas. I have a show in Kansas City, but yeah, I don't know what it is with Wichita. I keep trying to get booked in Wichita and I always fail. I have to try harder next year. Tammy asks, when are you getting married? I have no idea. You know, like we had a pandemic. We got engaged, and then there was a pandemic. And we're like, well, we're definitely not doing it now because we want our families to be there, or family. There's only one family involved. We want our family to be there. And the pandemic was over. And then I went on tour, and then tour was over. And I was working on Gothic Life. And then, you know, there's just always something going on. So I guess now that the demonatrix is behind us, we should probably start thinking about it. But I don't have a date. Good luck continuing to make your film a masterpiece that nobody's ever seen before, says Jose Fernandez. Thank you, Jose. I put some stuff on, you know, obviously I'm a huge fan of Ray Harryhausen, and Ray Harryhausen's co-producer, Charles Schneer, I heard him say once that the secret of his success was that he was always trying to put things on film that had never been seen before. And this film, there's things in this film you ain't never seen before. And so I'm hoping that will add to its success, or lead to its success. M says, thank you for sharing today. Tomorrow is a really hard day for me and my family, and we are very low, but hearing your good news made us happy. M, I'm delighted that I could bring a little bit of joy to your life tonight, and keep your head up. You know, whatever it is, you're going to get through it. And whether you like it or not, you're going to be looking back at it at some point, you know. So keep your head up. All things in this life, good and bad, come to pass. And they all end up becoming a piece of history. So just keep it in that context and strength. Dark Twisted Witch says, hey, Voltaire, congratulations on the Demonatrix and hope you're doing well. Would you ever consider taking Demonatrix and making that into a book? It's possible. Anything's possible. I never saw it as a book, because I don't know why. It's a very visual thing, but yeah, it could absolutely, it could be a book. I mean, Call of the Jersey Devil I wrote a screenplay because I wanted that to be my first film, and everybody apparently hated my screenplay. And I was like, this is such a great story. I'm not going to let it go to waste. And I wrote a book and it got published and now it's a novel. And then it came out and suddenly people were like, this should be a movie. So yeah, it's entirely possible. Josh says, I grew up in a similar background. I was made fun of liking wrestling and Marvel comics, and everybody thought it was weird in my Cholo family. Coolest moment I remember was giving you that action figure I made of you. I still have it. I love it. Thank you, Josh. And I'll see you trying to book a Las Vegas show, so maybe I'll see you there. Thank you again for the beautiful action figure. What else we got here? Okay, so George says, can you give us a clue as to what festivals you're planning to submit the film to? It's really going to depend on timing. It's like when the film is done and who's accepting. But I really want to submit to Morbido. Morbido is a Mexican horror film festival. It's an important one. It's a respected one. And because this film is because my character in particular, brings so much love for Mexican culture into the film, I'd love to premiere there, but they have to accept us. It's not the other way around. And then outside of that, there's Fantasia in Montreal, and there's Sitges in Spain. There's a whole bunch of really great ones. And, ultimately, I just hope that they will like the film. We'll see what happens. Will the film be sold on DVD too? Asks Penn. Absolutely. That is a definite, because one of the perks in the Indiegogo campaign was like a Blu-ray or something. And so we're definitely going to make those. Have you ever done any voice acting? Asks Anomaly. Brains, I won't lie. That's kind of voice acting, isn't it? Sort of, right? What the hell's the next line? Brains, I won't lie. This is what happens when you sing a song too many times. I better remember because I'm singing it tomorrow. Shit, I really don't remember the next line. It'll come to me. But yeah, I sang some songs for the Cartoon Network, and I have done a little bit of voice acting, but I'd love to do more. We'll just see opportunities. We'll see what opportunities present themselves. River Winter says, I'm curious about the Nightmare Before Christmas story. Yes, I'd love to share it, but it's a long story. So that's going to have to be for story time with Uncle Volty at some other time. Baltazar Mendez says, hey, Voltaire, do you like pique on your food? Pique. I don't know what that is. Do you mean picante? Do I like spicy food? Because if that's the question, no. I actually do not like spicy food. I like my food bland. I like my food flavorful, but I don't like spiciness. I go very, very light on the chili. Michelle says, Jane Weedlin had one of your songs on her post this past Sunday. That's really awesome, but I'm going to have to look her up because I don't know who she is. Jane. She's a singer. Born in 1958. As an American music singer, co-founder, rhythm guitarist, and backing vocalist. Okay, I'm going to have to look into her. Well, thank you for the tip. No, let's see now. Wait a minute. She was in the Go-Go's. Oh, I know who she is. Okay, wow, that's really cool. I'd love to know what song it was. Now I can't find my way back. I found my way back. Oh, okay. I know exactly who you mean. I grew up with the Go-Go's. Yeah, you'll have to let me know. Please write a comment. Let me know what song it was. I'd love to know. It's been a long time since I had Voltaire on my TV. Ooh, wait till Demonatrix is streaming on Shudder. Then you'll be able to watch me as Father Veto. And Father Veto, he does speak with an accent. So he's like the most interesting priest in the world. And he fights demons. He does not like the demons, unholy abominations. They are unholy abominations, you ugly monsters, unholy abominations, coming here to what is it? Desecrate the sanctity of this holy place. I loved writing those lines so much. Will you play San Francisco? Had to cancel that one on this particular tour, but I'm going to try to make it up next year. Bernil says, will you ever have shows in Puerto Rico? I would love to. I've been trying for years. I tried to book a show last summer. Didn't happen. So I'm trying, but it's not all up to me. It also requires a local promoter to say, hey, this makes sense. Will you be selling the Almost Human CD at your Nile date? I lost my signed copy in a home flood, says Unfamiliar Prologue. Unfortunately, no. I have no Almost Human CDs. I have no single CDs. I have the compilation CDs. I have the Best of Volume 1, Best of Volume 2. I might have the Black Labyrinth, and I'll definitely have the Last Halloween Party since it's the most recent one. I am looking into doing one final pressing of each individual title, Devil's Breast, Boohoo, Almost Human, Ookie Spooky, etc., etc. Probably in the fall, but unfortunately, I do not have that now. Let's see what else we got. These questions are coming fast and furious, but like I just pick the spot where they begin, and then I go from one to the next, which is why things may seem they move a little slower here in Voltaire land than they do on your monitor. Odd question. Why not a stop motion monster movie? Says Pride Toxin. Because I'm old and I don't have like 6 years to dedicate my life to one thing. That's why. That's why I don't do stop motion anymore. I taught stop motion for 25 years. And like the last year that I was teaching, I would show my reel the very first day of school to, give the students an indication of what my skill level was, so they would know whether they should or should not listen to me. And I'll never forget, like I'd seen my reel 3 million times to the point where like I didn't really want to watch it anymore. So like I'd put it on and I'd go out into the hallway to get a cup of coffee, and it was like 16 minutes long. And then like I'd come back in and we'd talk about animation. And I'll never forget, like towards the end of my teaching career, I looked at the screen and it said, Aurelio Voltaire, stop motion animation director, 1985 through 2011. And I just remember looking at those dates and realizing that the reel was 16 minutes long. I was like, I need to do something that allows me to be more prolific, because with every year that goes by, my time becomes more and more valuable, because there's just less of it. There's going to be less of it. If I was 17, I'd have, decades ahead of me. I'm 57. I don't have decades ahead of me. And so my time becomes much more valuable, and I need to focus on things. I have so many ideas and I want to see them see the light of day. If they were stop motion films, I'd make one and then I'd keel over and die. It's just not how I want my life to end. So that is why I no longer make stop motion films. Hope that is an adequate answer. Have you ever thought of visiting South Carolina? All the time. Nobody ever books me there. I tried on this tour and nobody would book me there. I couldn't even get clothes to write back to me. They're just like, who's this clown? I never heard of him. I'm still trying. Oh my gosh. Can we have a quick song before you go? No, I don't have my guitar. Unfortunately, I don't know that I can do a quick song. You know me. I'm too verbose. All right, here's one. Estas son las mañanitas que cantaba el rey David. A las muchachas bonitas se le cantaban así. Despierta, bien despierta, mira quién amaneció. Y a los pajarillos cantan. La luna ya se metió. There's your quick song. And happy birthday. So, Natasha, it's probably not your birthday today, but that was happy birthday in Spanish, basically. You can tape this and replay it on your birthday. I love the Halloween album. So catchy, says Kelly. Kelly, thank you for listening. Are you planning to make more movies after this? Says Sarah Hickman. Sarah, immediately after making the Demonatrix, I couldn't remember what I did before making the Demonatrix. I was like, I make movies now, I guess. And I came back to New York City and I had to pick up the guitar and like relearn all my songs to be able to play them in Chicago, because I have not played any of my songs since November of 2023. That's not a joke. Since November 2023, I have not played a single one of my songs because the tour was over and I was working on Gothic Life, the book. And then I went to Indonesia where I continued working on Gothic Life. Then I came back and then I kept working on Gothic Life. I had no shows. And then I went right into Demonatrix, and I haven't played any of my songs in 6 months. So I kind of got off the set of the Demonatrix, and I really thought like, oh, what do I do next? I guess like another movie. So because I forgot what I used to do. But the simple answer to your question is I hope so. You know, like I hope that the Demonatrix is so popular that, you know, people take note. You know, when you make a movie especially for very little money like we have, and it's successful, then Hollywood pays attention and they're like, hey, here's a 3-movie deal, or hey, here's $1 million. Go make a couple more movies, you know? So I really hope that happens. I would love to keep doing this. It was great fun. Thank you for your question, Sarah. Oh my gosh. That's just some flirting is what that is. I'm just going to pretend I didn't read that. Will you ever make the CD collection that you mentioned? The one that I was just talking about, actually, but this is an old question because I move very slowly, says McJuggy Squad. Yeah, probably. I want to do that in the fall. So probably. Is it okay to buy the tickets from Empire's website? I don't know. I have links to all the places to buy tickets on my website, so I would suggest getting them from those links to be sure that you're not being scammed. Can I call you my goth dad? Sure, why not? Adopt me. So many amazing people in this film. I can't wait for it. Says it was a good idea at the time. Yes, it was intense working with such incredible people. And shenanigans. So sad you weren't able to make it to tour. Oh, right. Okay, I think I read that one. Are you hitting Ohio this year? Yes, Williamsburg, Ohio. It's near Cincinnati. So check out my schedule and come see me. I'm afraid to move faster than I'm moving. Will the Spanish parts of Demonatrix have English subtitles? Of course. Says Smooth Operator. I wouldn't leave you in the dark like that. I mean, you know, when have you ever seen a movie that had a foreign language where they didn't do subtitles? If they did, they're just cruel, you know? You want people to understand what's going on. So there will most definitely be Spanish subtitles. I mean, rather English subtitles in the Spanish parts. And I have to imagine that if the film's available in Spanish American, you know, Latin speaking countries, which I really hope it is, there'll be subtitles for the English parts. True Real Dreams. Will you do a collab song with someone soon? Imagine you and Ozzy. That would be awesome. I would love that. I don't really have any musical collaborations like planned at the moment, but I'm always open to a really good one. So we'll see. Casey Batts also says, I was wondering about a concert in Ohio, Williamsburg, Ohio, at Terror Town. That's the only Ohio date on the calendar, I'm afraid. What else we got? I apologize. A lot of these are comments, which I enjoy reading, but they're not really questions. So, but I don't want to skip over them and not read them. So that's why it's just going to take me a little bit of a minute to get to ones that are actually questions. Saw you with Queef Burglar. Says, saw you with my best friend in Ohio last year. So many Ohio people on the stream today. Thanks for a fantastic show and also for being so cool when I met you. I was being such a spaz. One of the best nights of my life. Hope all's well. I'm glad you had a good time coming back to Ohio. So I hope to see you there. Would you ever tour Australia, says Fox Puppet. Again? Yes. So I've toured Australia maybe 4 or 5 times. I would absolutely return. It's extremely expensive and it's like really hard to get promoters to agree to bring you out because it's just so expensive. So unless you're selling like 300 tickets a night, they're just going to lose money. So that's why, you know, there was like a last Australian tour a few years ago, but I'd love to return. So it's something I'd love to work on. Halloween Nerd, would you ever consider coming to Greensboro, North Carolina? I believe I've played in Greensboro a bunch of years ago. Of course, I would visit if they would have me. So let's work on that. The Madhouse Within. How are you feeling lately personally? Exhausted. I'd like nothing more than to go away for 3 months and sit in a jungle. But there's a tour to play. Luckily, I enjoy touring, so should be fine. But when it's over, I'm going to go sit in the jungle for a fact. What else we got here? Oh, Daniel Rosas says, who you saw a picture of. He was in the seance scene in our film. He says, absolutely honored to have been a part of the film, and I need a physical copy of Last Halloween Party and Gothic Life. Well, you can get both. Last Halloween Party, I'm going to send a bunch of signed ones to my web store probably tomorrow, and they'll be available probably within the week. And then Gothic Life, as you know, is open for pre-orders. And thank you, Daniel, for being in the film. It was really, really great to see you on set. Professor Kronos says, I love your music and I love Gothic homemaking. I was surprised to learn of the demonatrix, and I wonder, do you have any tips for those who want to make their own horror movie? Yes, make your own horror movie. It sounds stupid. It sounds like I'm being facetious, but I'm not. People are constantly asking for tips on like, how do you get signed to a record label? And I'll say, well, what's the name of your band? They'll say, well, I don't have a band. Okay, well, what kind of music do you write? Well, I have never written any music. Okay, so you want to be signed to a record label, but you haven't written any music. And I get people who say, how do I get my book published? I say, what's the name of your book? Like, well, I haven't written it yet. I'm like, okay, well, what kind of stuff do you write? Well, I don't really write. I wrote a poem in high school once. And what I realize is that, and I'm not saying this is your issue, Professor, but what a lot of people believe is that like they require for a fairy godmother to come and wave a wand and say, you are a musician now. Here's a record deal. Go make a record. But in order to get to a point where you're making this art, you just need to start making art. You just need to start making the art. So the answer to like, how do you make your own horror film is you just start making your own horror film. Now, in the case of Demonatrix, it was like a feature film and it required, you know, like a professional cameras and a professional crew and all that shit. But you don't need to do that. Like you could do what I do with Gothic homemaking, which is how I got to a point where I could make the Demonatrix, because I just point a camera at myself sitting on my couch and talk about spooky wallpaper, and then like, you know, Orville Dedenbacher sitting in a corner saying dumb things, and like a werewolf might pop in. That's a horror movie. It's its own weird little low-key, low-rent version of a horror movie. But by doing that for 10 years, I developed an audience. So when I wanted to embark on making a feature film, the people who are going to invest money can look and go like, oh, that dude has an audience. Like he's got almost 250,000 people who tune in to what he's doing, you know, or like subscribe to his channel or whatever it is. Or, you know, I have 167,000 monthly Spotify listeners, you know, like those numbers are extremely helpful to convincing somebody to invest money in a project that you want to do. And without that money, if the project's big enough, without that money, you're just never, ever, 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 ever going to make that film. And I'm speaking for myself. So the only reason that I had an opportunity to make a feature film is because I make my little horror movies, whether or not anyone's going to watch, whether or not anyone's going to pay me, whether or not anybody cares. So the answer to how do you make your own horror film is make your own horror film. Like whatever technology you have, like whether it's your phone, phones are great these days. Write a script that's manageable, get your effects done, get your costumes made, go out in the backyard and make a movie. And then make another one. And then make another one. And just keep doing that and putting and sharing them. It's very important that you share them, sharing them online until people are like, oh man, you know who my favorite filmmaker is? Professor Kronos. And that is how you make a movie, just by doing it. It sounds ridiculous. The advice is so simple that it sounds ridiculous, but that is how I was able to do it. And that is the only way anybody ever does anything. That idea that someone's going to even though you've never written a song, someone's going to sign you to a record label, like that doesn't exist. That's a fantasy. That's like winning the lottery. Or, that like Hollywood is going to be like, hey man, well, do you want $7 million to make a movie? Even though you've never made a movie? Like it doesn't happen. It's a fantasy. It does not happen. The only way, Paranormal Activity was made by Blumhouse, right? And Blumhouse is the biggest horror producer at the moment. But at the time, it was just someone making an extremely affordable film. Someone making a very, very, very inexpensive film. And I'm sure, Mr. Blum did a million things before that. But like, that's how you get to make art. By making art. God, I really hope that didn't sound stupid or condescending, because I mean every word of that. And it's good advice, I think. Yep. John Chadwick says, I noticed there's a big Dragon Con shaped hole in your schedule. There is. That's a very good point. I did email them and say, hey, is it safe to assume I'm performing at Dragon Con this year? Like this would be my 25th anniversary of playing Dragon Con, like 25 years in a row. So can't imagine I'm not going to be at Dragon Con, but I don't assume. I don't like to presume. Like a vampire, I must be invited in. Like I can't just show up. So presume they'll say yes, but they haven't yet. And when they do, if they do, I will add it to my schedule. SG Taz asks, was the Call of the Jersey script the same story as the book? Absolutely. It's the same exact story. But when it got developed, when I developed it into a novel, it's got to get a whole lot longer, which is kind of cool, because then you can you're not stuck to this has to be an hour and a half long. Then you can really get into who the characters are and why they are the way they are and what happened in their past. And you can describe things with much more detail. So yes, it is exactly the same story. It's just the novel is much, much more detailed. And if the demonatrix is successful, I absolutely intend to try to make Call of the Jersey Devil as a film. So we'll see. Eric says, well, she definitely didn't respect our friendship. There's your answer, Eric. Thank her. Not literally. Don't send her a thank you note. But be thankful that somebody showed you with their behavior or their words or both that they don't respect you, because they don't deserve you. They don't deserve to be in your life. So just be thankful. It's going to suck a little bit. It's going to hurt a little bit. You're going to be a little lonely. Just surround yourself with cool people. Do fun things. Do things you enjoy doing. And before you know it, it'll be a distant memory. Mordanian says, I am very excited to see you in Mexico. I already prepared some friends to see you all together. I look forward to seeing you there. I haven't selected the opening acts yet, and I've got some crazy ideas. So hopefully there's going to be some really fun special guests. But come, enjoy the show. And there might be some extra bonus to being there. I don't know what that means. Please leave room for new experiences to find new people. I meet new people every single day of my life. So I don't know what that means. The madhouse within. When I do shows, it's not all, if I will play to 300 people in Chicago tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, and I won't know 250 of them. So I meet new people all the time. I have new experiences all the time. Oh, maybe that's advice for Eric. Oh, I think that's advice for Eric, maybe. See, now I'm just getting in everybody's business. It's none of my business. Sorry. Hey, there's a thought, Eric. Go on the road. Go on tour. Woo, you're going to meet so many new people. And I meet a lot of really cool people on tour. Rena says, will Mayumi be making her own song albums? I would love to be able to listen to her songs. That is precisely what she's working on right now. Precisely. One of the reasons she's in Mexico, well, she had a concert tonight, but one of the reasons she's presently in Mexico is that she is working on her first solo album. So hopefully you will get to hear those songs soon. Any chance you're coming to Dragon Con? Asks Ethan's voiceover. I hope so. I would expect so. But again, I don't like to assume. Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's weird. Do you have any cinematography tips, like tips about visual language with video? Says C. Heyman. I don't really. I'm really boring. Like when it comes to cinematography, I have a very, very traditional film vocabulary, like establishing shot, go in for a 2-shot, then like over the shoulder oneer, over the shoulder oneer, over the shoulder oneer, over the shoulder oneer, back up to like a two for shot, and then, do some inserts of hands grabbing things. I'm not the guy to ask because I'm not super exciting when it comes to cinematography. I want to tell the story, and I want to tell the story in a way that the audience is most going to understand. So when it comes to cinematography, I don't use any $15 words. It's like I use the basic building blocks. On this particular production, I had people around me who had other ideas, and very often if they had a crazy idea and it seemed like it might be interesting, I'd be like, yeah, do that. So Quentin Tarantino, I believe it was, says that you don't make a movie. Like as a director, you don't make a movie. That's not what you're there to do. You don't make movies. Like you come up with your idea for a movie, and then in pre-production, you get the script all tight. You do your casting, you make sure you have all the right actors, pick the right prop people, pick the right costume people, pick the right cinematographer, and then you just show up and just let everybody do what they do. And you might have to guide them a little bit, but like he says, sit back and watch it. Watch them make your movie. So I don't know that I'm that hands off, but I think there's a certain truth to that. Mm-hmm. I don't know what that means. I don't understand all the comments. I understand most of them. But sometimes they're like inside, conversations that are happening, like while I'm blabbering during my video. And I think that's why. I think we're getting to the end here. I think we're getting to the end. Yeah. I think I'll take one more question. Yeah, it's just a lot of people chatting with each other, which is wonderful. The fact that you can come here and engage in this video newsletter and find things to talk about with the people in the live feed makes me very, very happy. And the fact that everybody's so polite and respectful and courteous, I cannot begin to tell you how happy that makes me. Russell says, a fun story. I used to sing Goodnight Demon Slayer to my daughter as a lullaby. That is wonderful. I love to hear that. Butcher says, hello from Mexico. Hi, see you in Mexico pretty soon. More questions about if I'm going to Dragon Con. Hello from Syracuse, Utah. Hello, Cauldron Moon. Hope to see you in at least Salt Lake, if nothing, next year. You're doing Terrortown in Ohio again this year. That is correct. I am. Hopefully I'll see you there. What's the best way to have your friends for dinner? Asks Neon Bat. I'm not sure how to answer that question. I don't know if that's a Hannibal Lecter question or a, the Gothic Martha Stewart question. But I can tell you that the Gothic Life book has an entire section on hosting a Gothic dinner party. And then there's recipes throughout. There's Summerween recipes. There's Halloween recipes. There's creepy Christmas recipes. So at the risk of saying something like super obvious and sounding really cheesy, buy the book. But honestly, I think it's going to help you a lot, Neon Bat. And is that it? Is that it? Oh my God. Squirrel Gang 5150 says, I bought your cassettes. My God, you've been around for a long, long time. Thank you for sticking around, Squirrel Gong. Squirrel Gong or Squirrel Gang? I probably need my glasses too. Squirrel Gong. Loved playing your Halloween album for our bonfire. Thank you, Eric. Thanks for listening and thanks for sticking around. McJungle Squad says, you are our David Bowie. Don't break the Voltaire. Don't break the Voltaire. And someone says, broke Voltaire. Eric, that's really funny. All right. I really feel like I'm never, ever going to get to the bottom. Let's see. Maybe I will. Maybe I will. I don't know. Any hidden this is a great question. So Cyrilia Rose says, any hidden homages in the movie other than the creepy cast members? Yes, there are definitely some hidden and not so hidden homages in this film. They're watching, like Rhett and Lita are watching a horror movie at one point, and the horror movie that I insisted being on the screen is one of the most important and beloved Mexican horror films. And so I think that I'm hoping we get the rights. So that's number one. We'll have to be able to get the rights. But presuming we get the rights, I think that's going to make a lot of people really happy. Mexican horror fans in particular. I think they're going to be like, he knows that film. And, there's a part where Lita doesn't want to go to sleep and she's drinking a giant cup of coffee. And Jeff had written the line, we're going to need a bigger pot. And that, of course, is a reference to Jaws. But yes, there's absolutely some homages in there. But I will leave it to you to find them because it's more fun that way. Were you able to view the total solar eclipse on the 8th, asks Anomaly. No, I was not. I was in Seattle, which I don't think was like in the path of the totality. And I woke up at 4 p.m. So like I woke up and I remember knowing that the eclipse was that day. And I even looked at my phone and it was like there was still like 15 minutes left to the eclipse. And I was like, oh, damn, the eclipse. And I went outside and it just looked like a normal Seattle day. In other words, dark and rainy. It was dark and rainy. I was like, oh, I can't tell if there's an eclipse or if I'm just in Seattle. So yeah, I didn't get to see it, but I saw it on a previous tour. I saw an eclipse on a previous tour and that was pretty cool. So that was all right. Mike says, how do you get your beard and your mustache the way you did for the Boohoo album cover? Mascara. Mascara is my secret weapon. So I have some mascara in my beard right now. Not a lot, but I have some. If you want your beard to like look really dark and like really like neat, and if it's black, that's kind of a big part of it. You comb it with a mascara brush and it'll thicken it. It'll make it darker. And then you can kind of point it, So yeah, black mascara is the secret of my success. And oh my God, I keep thinking we're going to wrap it up. Oh, wait, hold on a second. Lucky Clamato says, will you be playing with Vision Video on Sunday, June 16th at the Ritz in San Jose? I didn't see your name booked for that show. No, I will not be there. every single one of the shows that I'm doing is in the tour poster that's at the front of this video, and it's on my website. So it's there's no other shows. That's it. And I don't think I was ever even scheduled to play with Vision Video in San Jose. I was never even on that show. But I did have some West Coast dates with them that I had to cancel, unfortunately. So just go to voltaire.net/calendar and you will know all of my tour dates. Good Doctor says, in the future, would you be considering being commissioned for a song to be featured in a narrative video game? Of course, I'm always open to doing things like that. It's just super expensive. People find out real fast what it costs me to record a song, because people will say, hey, I want to hire you to write and record a song for my game, which I've done. And they're like, how much would that cost? And I'm like, just to record it is like $3,000, like to rent the studio, to hire musicians. I pay musicians, I pay artists, I pay the studio. Like, I'm not trying to get anyone to work for free ever. So, and I work with the best. I work with really, really great studio musicians. So am I open to it? 1,000,000%. Is it going to be kind of expensive? 1,000,000%. but it's possible. What else we got here? Do you have merchandise booths at the show? Says Call in Dead. 1,000,000%. Absolutely. I always have the merch booth, and I always run my own merch booth. So if you come to any of the shows, the very first person you're going to see is me. Because like from the minute doors open to the minute doors close, I'm standing at my merch booth. I literally only leave the merch booth to go do the show. So I will see you at whatever show you come to. I really, oh, what's this? Okay. I'm going to I have to roll the wheel now, because I think I'm never, ever, ever getting anywhere close to the end. So let's just scroll down to the end. We'll do one or two more. And then, oh my gosh. I've answered some of these questions, but they keep popping up. So I don't know if that's a YouTube thing or so. McJuggle Squad, will you make a CD collection of all your albums? Yes. In the fall, probably. That is the plan. But I don't know. I sometimes see like the same person asking the same question again and again, and I think it might be a YouTube thing. Me, the person who is here, asks a bit of a joke question. Has Deddy ever met Orville? Do they annoy Posh and Lord Cromwrath? I have never crossed the streams. I've never crossed the streams. So no, Deddy has never met Orville, and Posh has never met Orville. So no. Those are two universes that I don't think can ever cross. If they do, the world will end as we know it. Leaf says, why Indonesia? Why not Indonesia? Indonesia is fascinating. Indonesia is made up of 18,000 islands. It is the world's most populous Muslim country. But Bali, for instance, is a Hindu island, and their version of Hinduism is like so incredible. The place is full of monsters and statues of creatures, and then there's Sulawesi, and there's Java, and there's Sumatra. Sumatra and Borneo are the only two places in the world where orangutans live in the wild, and I have gone to both, and I've seen orangutans in the wild. I got very close to a family of orangutans. Scared the shit out of me, I'm not going to lie. There was a little baby orangutan, and I was in the jungle, and I was like, oh my God, a baby orangutan. And I was like standing there looking at it. And of course, not trying to do anything to it, not trying to touch it, not trying to feed it. I was just taking pictures of it. And I turned, and its father was standing like 5 feet away from me. He's like, just like this, just staring at me. And it looked like it was like 400 pounds of all muscle. And I almost made a poopy in my pants. I was terrified. But I just politely and respectfully walked backwards very slowly. And then like a little while later, I was like sitting, eating some food I had brought like by the side of a small creek. And a mother orangutan came down from a tree with her baby and stole some of my food, which I let her do. You're not supposed to feed these animals, but I'm not going to try to stop a wild animal from taking a banana from me. So she came down from the tree and I just froze. And while I was frozen, she got, she was here. She was right on top of me. And she just reached down. I had like some bananas, some oranges. She grabbed a couple bananas and climbed back up the tree. So, where are you going to have that experience? Indonesia. That's it. It's literally the only place that's going to happen. And I'm just fascinated by the culture. I'm fascinated by the people. It's just it's a wonderful, wonderful place. There's fruit bats the size of, Great Danes. It is just, I love it. I love it. So that's why. I hope that answers the question. I have a show called A Light in the Shadows that I haven't published yet. And I have the opener and I have all the footage. And because my life's insane, I haven't cut it together and released it. But when you see that, you're going to go, oh, okay. Yeah, that's nuts. There's, I went to a place where they don't bury people. They just like leave them under a tree. And there was like 11 decomposing corpses there, which is fascinating because we have very set ways of understanding burial rituals. And they have a very, very different, opinion about it in that small town. And in Sulawesi, you cannot bury someone unless you have a big funeral, but big funerals are expensive. So if you don't have money to have the funeral, they just keep the body in the house with them. And they say that the person's sick, not dead. And so I was invited to someone's house to meet his grandmother. And he introduced me to his grandmother. And she had been dead for 8 months. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating, Some people would say it's disgusting. Some people would say it's disrespectful. People are going to have opinions, and that's fine. I want to live in a world full of opinions. I don't want to live in a world with one opinion, or that I don't want to live in a world where only one opinion is respected or allowed to be spoken. I want to live in a world full of human beings, and human beings are complicated and multifaceted. And, I want to see these things that exist. And I want to give them the respect that they deserve as it being someone else's culture. I don't want to go in there and go like, that's weird. I've been the recipient of that all my life. So I don't want to do that to someone else. I want to go places. I want to see how they live. I want to understand how they live. And if it's particularly weird to me, I want to come to a point where I can at least understand what their motivation is. And I want to be able to see it through their eyes and understand it the way they see it. And it's ultimately about understanding the world and going to places where the culture and the practices are so different from what you experience when you get in your SUV and drive to the mall and then stop at a Starbucks and then drive home. Like, that's cool too. But I want to see this planet, and I want to see the people who live on the planet, and I want to understand them. And that's why I love Indonesia. And wow, that was really a lot of words. Okay, I'm going to do one more. One last one. Woo, you guys are real troopers, man. Hanging out for nearly 2 hours, listening to me blabbering away and having so many questions, not just for me, but for each other. I think that's really fantastic. Being respectful, being courteous, understanding that the person who's also here is just like you. And, you already have a similar interest. You're on the same exact page, watching the same exact thing. We all need to work on getting along better. And I tell you, these live streams are really great. I think the rest of the world could learn from the people who come to these live streams. And the last question of the night. This is rough. I got to pick one. I can't pick just one. Why not both? Why not all 100 of them? Let's see. Oh, that one's in a... Can I translate this? Debiera estar durmiendo, pero estoy viendo el director de Voltaire. Claro que sí. El directo de Voltaire. Pues, gracias. Gracias por mantenerte despierto para poder estar aquí a platicar con nosotros y disfrutar. Y ahora sí puede dormir, porque ya vamos a terminar. Let's see. And now there's no questions. Now it's just comments. Let's see. Certainly there's one last Oh, this is a really good question, but I don't have the answer. What do you think about Tibetan sky burial? Asks Ember Brandt. I don't know anything about it. So that's my homework assignment tonight, to find out what that is. Unfortunately, I do not know what that is. All right, last question of the night. I found one. Here's a great one. Zan's World asks, when is the Black Labyrinth book coming out? It's the one thing I didn't talk about. So before I signed a deal to make the Gothic Life book, I was working on an accompanying book to the Black Labyrinth CD. And it's a storybook, and it's beautifully illustrated by Abigail Larson and Dread Art and Erin Hars. Just really, really fantastic illustrators. All the illustrations are done. It's completely illustrated. And I had written up until chapter 6 of a 21 chapter book. There's one chapter for each song. I know the whole story. It just needs to be written and fleshed out, and it needs to make sense, and it needs to be poetic and grammatically correct and all that fun stuff. But it's extremely time consuming. And I had planned to go to the jungle and sit there and write this thing. But then Gothic Life happened. It's a great opportunity. If I write the Black Labyrinth book, I'm going to be very satisfied. You're going to be very satisfied. And then that's kind of the end of it. But, with the Gothic Life book, there was a real opportunity to create something that could increase visibility for the Gothic homemaking show. And so I was like, all right, I kind of have to do this first. So the Black Labyrinth book got put on hold, and it is now presently on hold. Now that Gothic Life is done, now that the Demonatrix is done, and now that I am just going on tour like I normally would be, I can put it back on my normal routine as something that I could be looking at and working on in between shows. So Zan's World, thank you for that question. And thank you for reminding me that I need to get back to work on the Black Labyrinth book. I worked so hard creating that story and creating this whole musical, which doesn't make a lot of sense without a libretto, without a book explaining what's happening in the story. It's very important, and it's something I really need to get back to. So thank you for reminding me. Thank you so much, everybody who tuned in. It is now time for me to sign 100 copies of The Last Halloween Party so that I can send them to the web store in the morning, pack my bags, and go play in Chicago and St. Louis. Remember, the first 3 shows of this tour are already sold out. So if you're planning on coming out to see me at any of the cities on the tour, buy your ticket today if you can. The quicker you buy it, the more sure we'll all be that when the time comes for the concert to happen, you will have a ticket and you'll be able to come. And I want to see you there. I can't wait to see you there. So thank you so much. Get your tickets. Come see me. Let us have a spectacular Halloween party any time of year. Thanks, guys. I'll see you next time.